Greetings friends, today I'm going to be breaking down one of my games from the tournament where I finished first. This was a game against Space Wolves. We're going to get fired into it, we're going to look at the map deployment. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments, I'll do my best to answer. So this will kind of be my second video talking about tournament stuff in Arcs of Omen. If you haven't watched the first video, you definitely should. In that video, I break down a lot of my learnings from Arcs of Omen, and also I go over the list that I played in this event in a lot of detail. I also did a couple of other videos in Arcs of Omen. You can find these all on my channel over on the Tactics playlist. If we are just meeting, then I am John, the BA Commander, and every week on this channel we're doing various videos on how to become a better Blood Angels player, or how to just be a better 40k player in general. If that's something you're interested in, then please do consider subscribing. Alright, let me tell you about my first game, and this was against the Space Wolves, and this was on Data Scry Salvage, so deployments looked something like this for both players. Let me see. Yes, so 6 objective map. We've got here, we've got here, we've got here. We got one here and one here, and then the one in this deployment zone. Okay, so 6 objectives. The objectives are a little bit hard to see. They use clear objectives at the event. I would prefer if it was more obvious, but that's fine. So what I wanted to do to begin with was obscure a bunch of stuff, because we don't know if we're going first, but we also want to make sure that we are positioned for Forlorn Furies. So you can see one Death Company here and one Death Company hiding. I'm actually using the Impulsor as essentially terrain here. With clever placement, they won't be able to see the models over the Impulsor, or even under them. I think sometimes you might be able to see under an Impulsor, but I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to draw line of sight underneath a tank like that. Might need to check on that, but I think I asked Andrew that before in one of our matches, and he says that you cannot be drawn line of sight underneath in it, like one of these flying tanks that sits, I don't know, they maybe just sit like half centimetre off the ground or something like that. Okay. If they could see a Thunderhammer poking over the top, they could shoot it. But I don't think they can target your toes underneath. So my Whirlwind's on an obscuring position. This is obscuring terrain, and I have a land speeder here. I actually did put a unit of mine cursors are hiding in this building down here. My infiltrators are forward deployed along in a line like this, and they are just maybe 1 inch away from the terrain. The idea behind the infiltrators being here, really, because it's turn 1, is if he brings a unit out and he wants to charge, I don't want him to get to any of my high value targets, i.e. I don't want him to be able to make a turn 1 charge on the Dreadnought, I don't want him to be able to make turn 1 charges on my Death Company or my characters. So I've used this tactic before. Infiltrators are cheaper troop units in front, basically saying, yes, you can charge the cheaper troop units, but I'll instantly countercharge and mop you up. And if you kill the cheaper troop units, I'm not super bothered by them. The priest and my captain are dead center, so that if I did get to go first, my Death Company would probably jump like this, and then make a daisy chain this way, so that we get for a turn 1 charge. And if I got turn 1 charge, I really wanted to go after probably the Thunderwolf Cavalry. They were deployed a little bit back. You did have a squad of Assault Intercessors here, but I think maybe I could have daisy chained the Death Company like this, and then had my 12-inch move over the terrain, and I could have probably got those cavalry in turn 1 if I went first. However, I did not go first. He has deployed all his fire support to this side, so they are expecting to walk out, and they will be shooting down this, and this will be their firing arcs. Maybe like the chicken dreadnought and the bat dreadnought. I did measure 8 inches was going to just sneak them out, which probably was going to make it hard to hit any of those units there. So he was going to be able to shoot the Impulsor. Now they play forests on this event as dense cover, so I will get -1 to hit. So if these dreadnoughts move, then he's only going to hit the Impulsor on 4s. My Impulsor has a invulnerable save, so I was feeling like it's sometimes quite hard to deploy a whole army obscuring, but that's what we have to do with Blood Angels. Yes, I could have possibly deployed some stuff down here, but it felt like he was kind of going for this, and I want to be countercharging, so I feel like I needed to be over here. And I also thought, like, by having my Impulsor here, it makes it very easy for me to get my Blade Guard over into this objective as well early. And when you're playing Data Scry Salvage or a map like this, where there's basically like 3 in a third of the board, I guess, and 3 in another third of the board, and you've sort of like got this no man's zone in the middle, I think the way to play a map like this is to pick a side. And you don't have to pick the side before turn 1. You could pick it like right after. And sometimes if they've gone really strong on one side, let's say, and there's not enough cover on one side, you could almost fake your deployment. And that's one thing you could do with the Impulsor here. The Impulsor having a 14-inch move, Blood Angels would advance it, so it would be moving like, what, 16 to 21 inches? If I was unhappy, I could always bring my Impulsor around like this. And I could pivot all this stuff down towards these 2 objectives. And sometimes knowing that and being prepared for that can be really key. But Space Wolves against Blood Angels, we're probably going to have a pretty even fight. These 2 objectives are so out in the open. With my Land Speeder here, it means that he would have to put a squad on this. If he puts like a single character or something, then I can instantly jump over and multi-melt him in the face. Yes, that might not kill him, but I also have an attack bike. You can see it over here, hiding in strategic reserve. It could come in here on the edge of the board. 9-inch shot onto this objective as well. I also have assault intercessors. They could probably come in an obscuring position here and then make a nice little charge. So I have ways of getting and countering this objective, and I am also going to basically sticky this one in the corner. Possibly a good thing to do here would have been to try and start one of these incursors / infiltrators on this objective to sticky it as well, and then my whirlwind wouldn't be quite so trapped. In this game, I think the whirlwind just... And I've been doing this for a while. The whirlwind was sort of trapped and it held the objective. Okay, so that's what the deployment sort of looked like in turn 1. And then we roll off. So I would say that if he goes first, he's going to be able to shoot the Impulsor with the Dreadnoughts. They'll be able to come out, they'll shoot the Impulsor, but that's it. Maybe, you know... It was going to be hard, actually. I think the only other place I could have put the Death Company back here, or I could have put the Death Company in this terrain way back here, and sometimes I actually think there's value in starting one squad of Death Company or Sanguinary Guard in this backfield, completely safe. And the reason I would do that would be, let's say, I'm pretty happy with the Death Company here. They're safe, right? And let's say, if I go first, they charge in. Perfect. If he goes first, he brings some stuff forward, then they charge in. Perfect. What I can do then, after that's happened, is the unit of Death Company in here, in turn 1, I can move them or advance them into almost this position where the Death Company were there. So they were safe, like, even if, you know, so if he'd come out here with, like, long-range firepower, the Death Company in that back piece of terrain, they're totally safe. Then they'd move up to somewhere else that is safe in turn 1, and then in turn 2 they can push on and do the same thing. And usually when they push up, they'll stand next to the Priest and the Captain, so we can do the whole Chapter Master rerolls, Assault Doctrine thing 2 turns in a row. Okay, so as we continue into this game, I took a few pictures every game, so hopefully you'll be able to just see kind of what was happening. Now this was basically, okay, so this was actually, in this next picture, is like, we're quite far into this game actually, like I guess I didn't take a picture too early. What had happened was this Thunderwolf cavalry swung all the way around here. They did mop up one squad of Death Company, but my other Death Company did mop them up. He killed some of these infiltrators with a charge that he did come in here, so we did get that sort of early charge we expected. One of my Dreadnoughts has moved up here to fight some of his Dreadnoughts and contest this. Also, his Terminators came down here, and I believe a second squad of Terminators, which I had mopped up, had come down here. Over in here, I'd got my Blade Guard Veterans into the objective. My Priest was here, keeping Blade Guard Veterans and doing some revives. And over on this side of the quadrant, I had sort of done what I talked about. My my Land Speeder had done a bit of damage to some of his characters. He brought down Eradicators here. I don't think it was the best place for Eradicators, but there wasn't that many options because I have units on the side of the map. And obviously these guys in here holding the objective for me. So I think what was interesting in this, from my setup in turn 1, what he was able to do was he was able to turn 1 charge those assault intercessors. He put all of the 3 dreadnoughts into the Impulsor, and unfortunately he actually didn't kill the Impulsor. I don't have a screenshot of turn 2, but what had happened in turn 2 is, so I parked my Impulsor on this objective. I fully expected it to die, that was fine, but before it moved off, the Blade Guard went this way. So the Blade Guard onto this objective, getting me points, and my Impulsor sat on this objective. My Redemptor went up this way to tangle with his dreadnoughts, and I thought I would keep this Redemptor down here to have fire onto this objective. So while I sort of fight over these two, and I hold the backfield, and I hold this one, so I'm kind of already on 4, then I give myself a clear firing line onto number 5. His Thunderwolf cavalry were almost damned if they do, damned if they don't, because I had the multiple squads of Death Company back here. If you remember, there was one here, and there was one here. Basically, what it meant was that, like, when the cavalry came in, I was able to tangle with them and get rid of them very, very easily. So the impulsor and cover actually did really, really well. -1 to hit on an impulsor, and then the 5-up invulnerable save. I kept it alive for a whole turn, and thus soaked up a ton of fire, meaning that, like, I can't see how many wounds that Dreadnought has there. Maybe I can zoom it in. I was going to say, I think he's got 2 dice, so he's got at least 10 wounds. So this Dreadnought is right as rain, and yeah, he's going to die to these Terminators, or he's going to die to Bjorn. But the second they do that, it looks like I have another squad of Death Company with Thunderhammers that will easily be able to make a 12-inch up onto that objective. I'm controlling this one with my Priest and Blade Guard veterans. I'm controlling this one with my Incursors, and he actually had taken some wounds off his. This was like a captain on a Thunderwolf cavalry, and when he actually charged round to the Impulsors, the Incursors, the mine did 3 mortal wounds to him, so my Incursors actually killed this character, which was bad luck. I didn't give him much choice what he could do with his Eradicators. He brought them down in cover, because I guess that makes them more survivable. But yeah, that was he had some snipers up here. They're doing like incremental or small damage to them, but I think the big thing was he brought down the Terminators here, he brought down Terminators here, because we managed to mop up those Dreadnoughts, and the Impulsor soaked up a lot of their fire, and then the big squad of Thunderwolves got countered. That was going to make the game very, very difficult for him at this point, which was, I think this must be turn 3 maybe. Let's move on then. So this would have been the next turn. Can I? No, there's no in-between zoom. Of course there's not. So as things can progress, you can see here that I mentioned my Death Company are going to do their thing and get into a nice big tussle up here. It looks like the Death Company and the Chapter Master on the bike against Bjorn and the 5 Terminators. I feel like that's probably a good engagement if I'm fighting first, which I would have been. I now have pulled my Assault Intercessors back onto my infiltrators that started as the protection line have come all the way back. And they're going to sit here and do some data. This Dreadnought is still covering this. He actually off-spec scanned my Death Company when I came down by the Eradicators. I fucked up here. I forgot Eradicators have off-spec scan, and he killed like 4 of the Death Company models with their off-spec scan. It was actually really good. But I fortunately brought in some other units here, my Assault Intercessors and stuff, so we managed to charge up. And having a free Thunderhammer on the Assault Intercessor Sergeant helped me, but it also meant that, like, at this point in the game, I was basically almost on all the primaries, except the one in his deployment zone. So yes, it sucked to bring the Death Company down here. I guess I could have possibly brought them down here, but I did want to have them on the objective if they failed their charge. I just wasn't expecting Eradicators to kill so many of them. I probably should have figured that out. But yes, Arcs of Omen, not getting a save against Multi-Meltas. This would have been the first game where I would have been playing that, because previously I would have been able to get roll saves against them. So this is with the new balance points, etc. You can sort of see my losses here. So I did lose one of my Dreadnoughts, but a really big swing in this was that Impulsor turn 1. Now, he knew I had 5 Blade Guard veterans into it. He knew I was probably going to try and pile the Blade Guard veterans into the Dreadnoughts, or I was going to try and use them to contest some of these middle objectives. And yeah, I mean, sometimes if you've got 5-up invulnerable save and 11 wounds, you can just hang on, and the Impulsor really did hang on early in the game. Okay, next. And this was as the game really dragged out. All the Eradicators got killed. I think all his Terminators got killed. Lamartez is now in that fight. You can see him just at the front here. So it was just Lamartez probably against Bjorn. I'm still holding this under here because my Eradicators, my Blade Guards, had sat under here basically most of the game. You can see the little wound dice on top, so they were still holding that. Still holding my backfield. I actually failed NAC1 data with these two incursors a couple of times, actually. The Voidsmen were desperately trying to get back over here to do it as well, but it didn't really matter. Over here in the final turn, I would think I was able to push my Assault Intercessors forward and managed to do the NACMUND. So yeah, this was a interesting game against Space Wolves. I've fought double Redemptor Space Wolf lists before, and this was a essentially triple Redemptors, 2 Redemptors and Bjorn. So here's the overall scoring for that game, and I scored 39 on primary, 35 on secondary, 10 battle points for 84 points, which was a victory against 50. Like I said, my Impulsor was the MVP. Putting it in that dense cover helped so much. It worked against Tau as well, putting stuff in dense cover. It does help. It does add so much survivability to vehicles if you can do that. Going first wouldn't have changed too much, I think, in this match. I probably wanted to go first, but I was fine going second. Thanks to the Impulsor saving basically absorbing all the firepower. Fury of the Lost will definitely be missed. This was the first tournament that I ran Fury of the Lost at, and I actually scored 12 here, and I got better, I think, on Fury of the Lost as the event went on. I think it will now be very hard for Marines to score over 90 points, especially with Blood Angels losing Fury of the Lost as a secondary, and also the reduced durability of Arts of Omen units. I think I've already been saying invulnerable saves for a few weeks are going to be so key for Marines. A 3-up save in the current meta just feels like garbage, and a lot of the time you don't even get to roll saving throws. Not being able to roll saving throws on stuff like Redemptor Dreadnoughts or 185 point Dreadnoughts just feels insanely bad, and I probably won't be running 4 Death Company going forward, even if I do now think Lamartez is a beast. I used Death Visions a couple of times in this event. I didn't use it in this game. I think I only remembered about it on day 2, but I did actually have some fun with the Death Visions. And yeah, Data Scry Salvage is a fine map, and this game against Space Wolves was a pretty fun game. It's definitely worth giving a shout out to my opponent, Stuart. It was my first game against him. He actually gave me a lift to the event because of my broken arm, and I really enjoyed this game, and hopefully we'll get to play Stuart again. It felt good to get some revenge on Space Wolves. If you remember, they're the army that beat me, that stopped me winning the RTT in the middle of last year, so maybe just a little bit more experience against them, knowing exactly what they can do. And I think with the 3 Thunderhammers on, or the cheap Thunderhammers now on those Thunderwolf Cavalry, those units are so scary. But fortunately, I think Blood Angels are fast enough and strong enough to mop them up and deal with them if possible. You are kind of going to lose something to them because they move 10, they advance and charge. But as long as you can sort of choose what you're losing, choose what you're training, and that's why I wanted to go first. I wanted to try and take out his Wolf Cavalry before he got to move them, because I felt like they were the scariest thing he probably had in his army. Alright, thank you so much for watching. This is going to be a little bit of a mini-series where we break down each of the games. Next up is going to be Dark Angels, so keep up an eye for that. Thanks ever so much for watching.